Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I was struggling with this thing.
I was freaking out. I'm like, oh, great, my internet. I'm like, I'm going to go to a different computer. And I'm like freaking out. But
No, it was totally on my end. I was like, ah.
So did you make me co-host just in case? Like I can let participants in?
I will do it right now.
Okay. So Susie, last week we had Terry Kearns with opioids on. Perfect. And there was a few kids in the chat room that were being inappropriate, highly inappropriate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
did we disable the chat then?
Curb that, yeah, and curb that.
Yep, doing it right now.
Okay. Well.
And then Samantha, when you after this, will you send me a participant list?
Yes.
Roster or like who attended?
Oh, yes, I will do that. Disabling the chat. And then Aaron, I made you the co-host, and then Susie, you're the co-host, so you guys can see like who will be in the waiting room, and then you can admit those people yourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen okay, Samantha and Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the correct screen, yes. Not the screen with the notes and stuff. Okay, good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Oh, I have a couple more I'm letting in, just hang on. Those of you that are on, welcome and thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you guys being here. It's going to be a fun one with Susie Rubio with Health and Human Services. Just so you know, in order to get credit, make sure your camera is on. And if you have any questions, raise your hand, wave or something, and we'll see you and we'll be able to answer it. We have disabled the chat room, so you cannot put anything in the chat room, but make sure your camera is on. All right, questions are welcome, so please just raise your hand, or you can use the bottom. You can raise your hand on the screen too. But tonight's will be on vaping dangers with Susie Rubio, and she's with Health and Human Services, and she's an expert in tobacco prevention. So welcome, Susie, and thank you for coming back. Thank you to Partnership Carson City for allowing us to have this and co-host with us. So Samantha Sazoika is on, and I appreciate you being here as well. Let's get started. So Susie, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin. So everybody, my name is Susie Ledezma Rubio, and I work for Carson City Health and Human Services under the Tobacco Prevention for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. So we're going to be talking about vaping dangers today. Before we get started, I want to let you guys know about this cool opportunity that you guys have. Let me see. Sorry, I gotta figure out how to navigate this.
Yeah.
So there's a challenge that is due by March 22nd. So you guys have about a week, but it's a contest for the opportunity to win $500 to feature some work with the FDA on vaping awareness. It's a design contest sponsored by the Scholastic. So basically you design a poster or an infographic with the highlights that of the effects of and the dangers of vaping for your peers. So you prep, create, and submit. It's for grades 6 through 12, also grades 9 through 12. So there's 2 different prizes. You can get creative. You can make an impact, something fun for you guys to be able to do. So hopefully my presentation will help you make something for this. And then I'll have more information for your teacher, Mrs. Beam. I'll print out some flyers for you guys just as a reminder. But this is just something fun and upcoming. And again, it is due March 22nd. So basically what we're talking about today, what is vaping? Vaping is essentially when you're using an electronic device that allows you to heat up a liquid. That liquid can contain flavoring, water, other chemicals. Usually the ones we're talking about today are nicotine, but some of them do have CBD or THC that create that aerosol, and hence that user inhales that, what most people call vaping or smoke, that smoke. And then these can come in different shapes and sizes. They can be very small, as small as a USB, or as big as a charging, like those battery packs. They can be as skinny as a pen. So they're very creative on how they make these things, but they basically all consist of the same thing. There's usually a battery, a heating element, and a chamber that holds this liquid. So before we go on, I just want to make sure that I explain this. So e-cigarettes do not burn tobacco. They actually use a cartridge that's filled with the liquid. Like I explained, what contains those chemicals, and it actually heats up this chemical and creates that steam that person inhales. There are other devices that are called heat tobacco products, so HTPs. And these ones are like the IQOS or Eclipse that sometimes marketed heat, not burn. And these basically heat the tobacco leaf itself, and that also produces that aerosol. And e-cigarettes actually heat the liquid that contains the nicotine in it, and that's what creates the aerosol in these. I'm just gonna go over, there are different systems with e-cigarettes. So there is something that's called open systems. And these are basically, you can refill them manually by buying nicotine salt e-liquids, or there's closed systems where you buy the cartridge that already contains these e-liquids. Basically, an open system device has removable mouthpieces, but in the case of closed systems, the mouthpiece is already built in to the e-cigarette cartridge. And in addition to that, the mouthpiece on an open system e-cigarette is equipped with a tank or a clearomizer. Basically, that's what holds the e-juice, and as well as a battery. The closed systems also has a juice cartridge or a pod. It's a version of a tank or a smaller open tank in a sense. This is screwed on and has a heating unit, so it's a little bit of a smaller version of a battery pack. And they both contain chargers. And then some brands for open systems are like Soren, Smox, and for closed systems, it's usually like Jules or Fix. There's different brands. There's so many out there, and you probably know of many more than we do. So let's move on here. And I just wanted to kind of show you the kind of devices that we're talking about. Like I say, they range in different sizes, styles, look, colors, flavors. And these are just like the different device pieces. So there are disposable e-cigarettes. There are those one systems that contain a cartridge, what they look like, tank systems, and then kind of giving you an overall, which are rechargeable, which are not, and what these different pieces look like, what a battery, a drip dip, a tank system looks like. And there's so many more, but basically all these are used again for vaping, or you guys probably call them different things. Oh, went too far. And so basically, we're going to talk about what the e-liquid actually is. Some people call it e-juice, a vape juice, or vape liquids. It's basically that solution that fuels the e-cigarette. And this solution can vary in chemicals. So it can have a nicotine, propylene glycol, glycerin, flavoring, water, other chemicals. Traditional single cigarettes yield about 1 milligram of absorbable nicotine. And these liquids actually hold about 15 milliliters. And usually it's what's in a little bottle where you can refill these. And the e-juice can be an equivalent to about 4 packs of cigarettes, but it varies. In some of these devices you can shut off and on. Another thing with e-liquids, you'll hear about nicotine salts. So basically nicotine salts have higher nicotine content. So the strength is a lot higher than traditional free-based nicotines. You might also hear them be called salt nic, salt nicotine juice, salt vapes, but basically this is not to be confused with table salt. It's not going to make the e-liquid salty or anything like that. It's just basically what they use in this e-liquid. So just to clarify, free-based means that the nicotine is in its purest form to other nicotine derivatives. The nicotine is much more potent when it says that. And it's heated, it can be absorbed faster into the lungs and can go to your brain a lot quicker. So companies usually manipulate that pH level in the nicotine. It provides more of a kick than traditional cigarettes without that increased dose. So it actually makes it more addicting. And they use ammonia to be able to do this. So they basically remove the positive charge from the nicotine and they change it into a free state. And basically it allows this to be absorbed or travel easier in those membranes like your lungs and all that. So again, it's making this already dangerous chemical more dangerous by making it more addictive and stronger, and basically making it more readily accessible to your lungs and your brain. So we'll go ahead and move on. We're going to talk about different flavors. With advertising plus flavoring, basically has equal to a lot of youth using e-cigarettes. Studies have shown that the reason that youth have used tobacco products is because of those flavorings. It ranges from strawberry, mint, banana, guava, mango. If you can think about it, they probably have the flavor. So a lot of TV and social media ads target teens with appealing flavors. They have matching colors. So like if it's blueberry, they'll make the device blue. If it's strawberry, they'll make the device red. And they have a lot of fruity flavors that are appealing to what kids normally would consume. Some studies have shown that teens are twice as sensitive to tobacco advertisements as adults, and are actually more likely to be influenced by these than peer pressure. So about 1/3 of underage experimentation is attributed to tobacco companies advertising these products. And sadly, about out of 8 to 10 youth actually use and consume these flavor products. Among high schoolers, actually the top flavors were fruit at 73%, mint was 56%, and menthol was 37%, and candy ones were actually 36%. So there's actually a high percentage of students or teens in general who are using these products. Another thing is that kids are younger and younger who are using these products. So middle schoolers are also using these. And for middle schoolers, the top flavors were more commonly fruits, about 76%. Candy was about 47%. And then mint and menthol were 47% and 23%. So as you can see, as you get older, those percentages change a little bit, but still a high percentage of students are using these. And like I said, there's an array of flavors. They have some crazy stuff like coffee lattes and banana splits. They have things that have like candies that you're normally accustomed to, like Nerds, Sour Patches, those types of things. But flavoring isn't the only issue with youth. It's actually targeting other minorities. About 85% of Black smokers smoke menthol. Menthol is disproportionately affects our African-American communities here in Nevada. And some of those have other struggles like poverty, lack of health care, different resources. So this isn't only a health issue, it's actually a social justice issue as well. There are a few regulations that we have. The FDA does regulate the manufacturing, imports, packaging, labeling, advertisements of these products, but there are loopholes. So one of the main ones that Nevada and some local communities are focusing are on the exemptions of certain flavors like menthol, and then also products like disposable e-cigarettes that can continue to use these other flavoring products that are enticing to youth, not only to youth, but to the general public. But these are just some examples of what FDA does regulate. They don't regulate any accessories that you can add to your e-cigarettes devices. But again, even with these new laws of banning flavors, there are still dangerous flavors out there, and they are cancer causing. For example, I believe it's pronounced Plugon is found in mint flavors, and that is actually a carcinogen. It's also can inflame the airways of the lungs. So this can be very harmful overall for your lungs, although most of the ingredients that they use in e-liquids, they may sound like they sound and they are approved for consumption, but they're not approved for inhalation. I just wanted to give you guys a little overview. These are national stats. So current use of select tobacco products among high school students. So as you can see, the yellow was 2019 and the blue is 2020. It seems that we're doing better overall as a nation. As you can see, there are still very high issues with e-cigarettes. Although that has gone down, it could be related to the pandemic though. So we're hopeful, and hopefully the 2021 stats show a decline for a nationwide. But when we go to our Nevada stats, unfortunately, they're not as optimistic. We're still pretty high with the use of electronic vapor products here in Nevada. Instead of decreasing, it's actually increased by about 2%. And then the usage of electronic vapor products in the last 30 days has also increased. As you can see in the dark blue, it's the 2017 data. And in the light blue, it's the 2019 data. And we went from 15% to 22.5% here in Nevada. And this is again, the YRBS. So it's the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance Survey that we do every 2 years. So the next time this comes out will be in 2021. And this is a little bit closer to home data. This is information for Carson City stats from the YRBS. And in 2017, those who tried these vapor products were at 50%. And in 2019, that rose about 10% to 60%. So again, we're not doing so great locally. We're actually increasing versus decreasing. And the last 30 days before this survey was taken in 2017, we were about 17%. And in 2019, that rose to about 38%. So again, that shows that there is a need and that we need to do a better job at educating our youth and having you guys become more aware and making better decisions and just giving you the facts so you're able to make an educated decision before doing some of these or purchasing some of these products or doing it or being peer pressured to do it. So what is the danger? Why are we worried about this, right? First, it's we're worried about addiction. We're worried about the chemicals that affect the body and the secondhand e-cigarette aerosols that come from these products. These are relatively new. They're new products that emerged in 2006. So there's a lot of research that needs to be done to really understand these products. And there are new products emerging every couple of years. So nicotine does negatively affect your brain development. It basically rewires the way the brain craves the nicotine, in particular adolescent brains, since they don't fully develop until your mid-20s. So this exposure can be long lasting. It can affect your impulse control. It can cause mood disorders. It can affect your memory. It can cause problems with your learning. So it has a lot of issues with brain development. So that's one of our concerns, especially with adolescents. It can also make you more prone to addictions, not just to tobacco, but other drugs like alcohol or marijuana. And this is because it affects the gray matter volume in certain parts of your brain that are affected to your emotional processes and your cognitive control. So this exposure during adolescence affects basically the functioning of your brain, and it makes it easier for you to become addicted. While e-cigarettes typically have fewer chemicals than cigarettes, they do contain heavy metals like lead. The flavoring can cause lung disease, and those small particles that you're inhaling can cause different cancers and cause different respiratory illnesses. Along with that, like I said, there's concern with secondhand aerosols, as they, again, might contain fewer chemicals. They do still contain some dangerous chemicals that, again, can have heavy metals in them and can be cancer causing. Also, one more thing that we want to note is that although most e-cigarettes, they do contain nicotine, they may be advertised as being nicotine free, or something along those lines. But there was actually a study done on these e-cigarettes that showed that 99% of the e-cigarettes sold did contain some form of nicotine. And any form of nicotine does have negative consequences for your body. So continuing, like, what's the danger? This is just to show you a visual on the addiction cycle. And so again, nicotine is highly addictive. It's in regular cigarettes, cigars, and other tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. So it basically only takes one puff that's less than 10 seconds for the nicotine to pass from the cigarette or the e-cigarette that you're using to get to your brain. It basically passes through a blood membrane. And this is the fastest that it can get to your brain than any other drug. And nicotine then creates a kind of rewarding effect. And it has your brain release dopamine and norepinephrine. And basically dopamine is linked to memory, pleasurable events, and norepinephrine is associated with alertness, concentration. And basically with doing that, once you've been using this and you're addicted, it calms you, it calms your anxiety of those cravings. It can normalize your mood, and it suppresses your appetite, and that actually increases your blood pressure. And then affecting that pleasure center, once that nicotine drops, you start to feel anxious, and then your cravings start all over again. And then hence you want to start vaping again or smoking or whatever happens to be your addiction. Again, nicotine is just rewiring the way your brain works, particularly in adolescence. Again, that is why this is a worry. And then I want to give you guys an example of how addiction can affect you long-term. So with each new memory that's created or a new skill that's learned, that's basically a stronger connection that your brain cells build. When they're doing this and you're doing any kind of drug, whether that's nicotine or something else, when that happens, your brain is building those synapses faster. And as you become an adult, it gets accustomed to those chemicals. Hence, nicotine is creating basically a dissociation with what it's supposed to be doing and having you continually crave this product. Nicotine changes the way that the synapses are actually formed. It can harm the parts of the brain that control, again, attention, learning, mood, and impulse control. So it puts you at risk, like I said, for other addictions and other drugs. And then people who do try to eventually quit smoking or e-cigarettes, most of them will experience withdrawal symptoms once they stop using the product. And these can be very unpleasant. They include having anxiety, mood swings, insomnia, sweating, mood changes, which you might see in some of your peers if you've noticed that they've stopped vaping for a little bit. They'll have these withdrawal symptoms, and because of these withdrawal symptoms, it makes it very difficult to quit, and that whole cycle will start all over again. And I just want to reiterate that these health impacts do affect all parts of your body. So nicotine affects all body systems, and all your body systems are connected. So your circulation is connected to your respiratory system, your hormones affect one another, your GI system, your reproductive system can be affected later in life. It can cause infertility in males and in females. It affects your brain in different ways, as I just explained. But nicotine can be readily absorbed through your skin or any mucous membrane. Honestly, it can reach your brain within seconds. It increases your heart rate, your blood pressure. It impacts the development of your brain. It can have adverse outcomes for pregnant women if they are smoking or using any nicotine products. These e-cigarettes have high doses of ultrafine particles, and these particles have been linked to cardiovascular disease, stroke, and asthma. There was actually a study done by the Desert Research Institute that showed that the vapor isn't just water, it's actually aerosol because it has fine particles that penetrate your lungs. So whether it's smoked or vaped, nicotine restricts blood flow. And something that people don't think about is their mouth. And when you're vaping or smoking, the way that it's coming in is through your mouth. So this can actually contribute to gingivitis in your teeth. It can cause gum disease, tooth loss. It can have some pretty nasty side effects. You'll get dry mouth, and that causes more cavities. So it causes all these issues that you really don't think about until you're already addicted. Another thing about this too is that nicotine is actually a poisonous substance. So you can actually overdose, and it could possibly cause death. So there is actually no safe level of nicotine for youth or exposure to developing babies in utero. And then some of these overdose symptoms that people don't think about that they might kind of just brush off as, oh, I'm not feeling well, or something like that might be rapid heart rate, nausea, elevated blood pressure. You might feel nauseous, dizzy. And some people have had seizures, and these seizures can happen within 20 to 30 minutes. If someone accidentally consumes these e-liquids as well, it could be poisonous, but it basically will irritate your eyes, ears, and throat. And it's very common for that to be said by users who either smoke or vape. So basically, what do we know? We know that secondhand smoke can be inhaled involuntarily by bystanders who are around people who are smoking tobacco. We know that there's third-hand smoke, which is basically residue substance from tobacco smoke that sticks into indoor surfaces. So if you ever walk into an area and you smell the odor of smoke, but no one's smoking, that would be third-hand smoke. This also affects your pets, unfortunately. And there's still being research done about secondhand aerosols and what it might do similarly to what we know about secondhand smoke. But for pets, they can get different cancers because they groom themselves, and that third-hand smoke, that residue that's left behind, could be on their fur when they're cleaning themselves or anything like that. Can be detrimental to your pets. They can get eye or skin disease and respiratory problems. Again, since they lick themselves, it could be harmful if they ingest it. But these are just some of the things that can happen. There are a lot more, but this is just what we're going to cover today. And then with secondhand e-cigarette aerosols, there are lots of chemicals that are in there, like I said, similar to secondhand smoke. There's nicotine, there's volatile organic compounds, ultrafine particles, heavy metals like nickel, tin, lead, and other cancer-causing chemicals. Again, this is not harmless. It's not water vapor like many believe. It is an aerosol, so it does have ultrafine particles that are harmful to your lungs and could be harmful to bystanders. But like I said, there's still research being done about that. For example, some e-cigarettes are marketed again as being containing 0% nicotine, but many have been found that to be a false statement. These chemicals, like for example, the propylene glycol, some people call it PG. It's a chemical that's used as a base in e-cigarette solutions. It's a colorless liquid that's used to sweeten the taste. It's approved for ingestion, but it's not approved for inhalation. So you might see it in other food products and say like, oh, well, that's in food, so it must be safe. That wouldn't be correct. These chemicals in propylene glycol can oxidize and actually become carcinogens once inhaled. And then we're going to move on. These are some unintended injuries from e-cigarettes. So they can cause fires, overheating, explosions, overdose, poisoning, and respiratory illnesses like EVALI. So the U.S. Fire Admin reported 195 incidents of explosions and fires that involved e-cigarettes. These resulted in 133 injuries and 38 were severe enough to warrant hospitalization. So these are just a few that we know about. I'm sure there are many, many more than are actually reported. A lot of times when we go into our presentations, we hear a lot of kids say, oh yeah, my e-cigarette device heated up, or yeah, I saw it one time explode. This is actually more common. So the reporting is pretty low probably compared to what it actually is. But here are some tips for you guys to avoid batteries exploding. Since that's been one of the common reasons they think that these explosions are happening is because of that lithium battery that e-cigarettes have. And there's been common like thigh burns because people normally carry these devices in their thighs or in a purse, or sometimes they've had mouth injuries because they've exploded while they were vaping them. But basically keep loose batteries in the case, prevent contact with any metal such as your keys or coins. Use the chargers that come with these devices, not phone chargers or tablet chargers. Don't leave them unattended and charging overnight. Don't charge it on a highly flammable surface like a pillow or a couch. They can overheat. And it's recommended that the batteries for the devices be replaced if they're damaged. So like if they get wet or anything like that, you'd want to remove those. And you want to make sure that you don't leave them in a very, very hot place like the car during midsummer, or in a very cold place like overnight in your car or anything like that. And again, these can cause overdose symptoms with nicotine. It can be something that you might not really think about, being nauseous or dizzy or being shaky. Those would be symptoms. Another thing with the poisoning, children and adults have been poisoned by swallowing, breathing, or absorbing e-cigarette liquids through their skin or their eyes. And approximately 50% of calls to the Poison Control Center were for e-cigarettes for children who were under 5 years old who had gotten access to these products. So the exposure for overdose or poisoning can be less than 15 minutes depending on the route of administration, whether that was inhaled or eaten or through their eyes or their skin, whatever that might look like. But children exposed to e-cigarettes were 5 times more likely to be admitted to healthcare facilities and were 2 times more likely to suffer severe medical outcomes if they were exposed to cigarettes. Another thing that's unintended with e-cigarettes are respiratory illnesses. EVALI, it's basically stands for e-cigarettes or vaping product associated lung injury. It's a lung disease that develops due to vaping. And this was back in 2019 when cases started to pop up. They think it's associated to vitamin E acetate, which was in one of the e-liquids. And they don't know if it was either nicotine or THC related, but they pulled some products and luckily the numbers went down, but basically the symptoms were shortness of breath, coughing, chest pain, and they saw over 2,000 hospitalizations and some deaths. And the reported numbers were 68 confirmed deaths as of February 18th of 2020. And those ages range from 15 to 75. So they had pretty young patients who were passing away from this disease. There were also quite a few that were hospitalized who were under the age of 18, about 15% of those patients. So these are, again, this is a device or devices that are currently being researched and we're learning about them, and they have some unintended consequences that we're not aware of yet. These are just a couple that have occurred and have happened and that we know about. But there potentially could be other things, especially with new products coming out. And although our FDA does approve these products for certain things, that does not mean that they're necessarily safe. They just pass certain guidelines that the government regulates. So e-cigarettes are actually using the big tobacco playbooks on how they advertise and reach out to their consumers. So they use the same thing. They use celebrity spokespersons. They use social media influencers. They print ads that feature young, beautiful women and men. They sponsor sports, music festivals, and they have products available in a variety of flavors. Right now, what's being mostly seen due to the pandemic is a lot of social media influencers. So like if you go on TikTok or Snapchat on some stories, you'll probably see some of these. These are just some examples here that we found. And again, some of their flavors, if you look there, they look like Sour Patches, or they look like your favorite cookies when you were a kid, or they look like whipped cream. So these companies are getting very creative to incentivize people to buy their products. And they're not really caring whether it's youth or adults. Although they say that their products are meant for adults, when you look at these flavors, it kind of makes you think if that's really, truly their target audience. Basically, to secure their livelihoods, they're targeting younger adults to entice them to be addicted to these products. A lot of these companies, tobacco companies, are actually purchasing e-cigarette companies. So like Ultra, I believe is the name, has purchased Juul. So they own 35% of that company. So they have been strategically finding ways on how to keep their numbers up, and they're coming up with new products, which include like snuff, e-cigarettes, and the HTPs, which is heated tobacco products, which is like heat, not burn. That's how they market their products now. And then they also use celebrity influencers. Not that these influencers are actually paid by the companies. These influencers are probably also enticed by the same things that the general public is, but they do hold a stronghold over youth. So if you see your favorite music artist, or you see your favorite movie artist and you see them vaping or smoking, you're probably more inclined to follow that as becoming normal. That might not be true for everybody, but that's what we've seen with certain youth and young adults, that this is something that the tobacco industry is using to their advantage.
Something really funny. I was just watching a movie, and it's a new movie, like it was produced in 2021. And the girl, the main character on the screen, like she's pretty famous. She actually they had her smoking an e-cig. And I was like, back in my day, they were all worried about showing smoking as a glorious, glamorous thing in movies and TV shows. And that was the first time I ever saw an e-cig in a movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
Yeah, you'll see it. If you look at your movies or you look at like even series, like if you go on Netflix, a lot of those TV shows and movies do have either somebody smoking a cigarette or they're using some kind of vape. So it gets put in our media quite a lot and we get bombarded by it. And eventually it starts to be normalized. And it's going to reverse all the hard work we did at decreasing smoking with cigarettes, although we still have work to do with that. That's another hurdle that we need to jump. So another thing is the cost of vaping. I'm sure a lot of you who are young like to save your money. Some of you might have jobs, so money right now isn't easy to come by, but some of these can be very expensive. Vaping can cost anywhere from $387 to about $5,000 per year. It's pretty similar to what smoking a pack of cigarettes cost yearly. So cigarettes are a little bit more expensive, I guess, starting wise, from $2,000 to $5,000. The reason there's that big discrepancy between that start of vaping and smoking is because some of the vaping products, like disposable products, can be pretty cheap. And those are some of the loopholes that our flavoring bans and restrictions like that have. But overall, it's a lot of money that's being spent on these products. Vaping doesn't stop at the price of a product. As mentioned above, it can actually cause serious health problems, can lead to the emergency room, and can lead to hospitalization. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, an emergency room visit can cost about $1,300 on average. This doesn't necessarily mean it would have to do with vaping related issues. This is just a normal ER visit. So if something were to happen to you, that would be the cost. A 3-day hospital stay costs about $30,000. Again, this is an average stay at a hospital that doesn't have to do with vaping related illnesses, but that's just kind of getting a snapshot of what that might look like. Respiratory failure or insufficiencies or lung cancer, hypertension, coronary heart disease, pneumonia, which are all possibly vaping related health conditions among some people and some conditions. Those average about $9,000 to $17,000 per year. So when you think of the cost of vaping, don't only think about the actual product. How much does it cost now? You could get a disposable one probably for about $10, but the overall health consequences and cost of that can actually be more expensive than you realize. And so we're going to talk about vapes versus cigarettes. So as of right now, smoking is still the leading cause of death in the US. It kills more Americans each year than AIDS, alcohol, car accidents, murder, suicide, drugs, and fires combined. So you can imagine how this issue is still a big problem. So although vaping might seem safer than smoking, that doesn't actually mean that it's safe. So keep that in mind when these products are offered to you, or if it crosses your mind that this is not a safer alternative. E-cigarettes are currently actually not approved for smoking cessation. It's not a form of a smoking quitting aid at this point. There still needs to be more research done to be able to approve that. But CDC and the Surgeon General did note that there may be some kind of benefit to adults who are already current smokers. And the catch to that is if they completely switch over to using e-cigarettes completely. It's not a partial where you would smoke a couple here and then vape a few times there. It's a complete switch. But it's not safe for youth or young adults, pregnant women, or really any adult who doesn't use tobacco products. And even for those who do that complete switch, to get the best overall health, they would eventually need to stop using the e-cigarettes. So they would eventually need help quitting those devices as well. So although these may seem like a better alternative, it isn't a better alternative for those who don't use these products. E-cigarettes have the potential to be a benefit to adults who smoke, but again, they are not recommended for youth, young adults, pregnant women, or users who do not use tobacco products. So you might hear in the media or you might hear in advertisements that vaping is a way to help those quit smoking. There's a little bit more to that than just saying that it'll help them quit smoking. This is Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General. In 2018, he called the e-cigarette use among our youth an epidemic. This was prior to the pandemic that we're currently living with COVID-19. And this epidemic hasn't gone away. It's still a continuous thing that we continue to work with that unfortunately has been overshadowed because of COVID-19, but it's still something that is a huge impact to certain communities, especially to youth, that we need to continue to work and make sure that you guys are, again, educated about what's happening, that you know what you're using and what you're putting into your bodies. Because a lot of these companies will lie and make false claims about their products in order to sell them. And this has been, like I said, an ongoing issue for years, and as of 2018 was called an epidemic. And when we started this current pandemic, that's a scary word for a lot of people. It stresses the importance for us to have to protect future generations from a nicotine addiction, which is not an easy thing to overcome. Many people try and try over again. There's been studies that youth, about 50% who do use these products want to quit. There's a perception that addiction is bad. It's no longer that, oh, it doesn't matter, we get addicted to anything. They're seeing it as a real issue. It's affecting their emotional state, it's affecting their personal lives. And for some people, they might not realize that perspective of it. They might think it doesn't affect me. But if you look around, if you really look at your friends and you look at their behaviors, and if it's changed, or if you notice that they can't seem to let go of their vapes, there might be an issue there. So some of the current efforts are happening in Nevada. Currently, we're trying to educate, like I said, our youth, our young adults about the dangers of vaping. There needs to be more awareness. There is something going on about raising the legal sales age to 21. Currently, it was 18. Currently, the president, our former president, had raised the federal age to 21. Nevada still has some work to catch up to put that into Nevada statutes, which would be the Nevada law to change that from 18 to 21. There's retailer education. There are still retailers who are selling to minors, and they need to be educated on that. Especially if this law changes from 18 to 21, there needs to be some education. There needs to be programs put into place to help that 18 to 21 gap for cessation so they can quit smoking. Other efforts are with flavoring bans. As I mentioned, it's a huge problem. It's a huge incentive for youth to use these products because of the flavors. And other things that we're also working on are like smoke-free workplaces and multi-housing units. So like I explained earlier, secondhand smoke, third-hand smoke, and possibly the aerosol from these e-cigarettes can be harmful to others. So we want to make sure that people in their workplaces and their homes feel safe. These are just a few efforts that are happening locally and statewide. So basically, what are things that you can do as a high school student? There are ways to raise awareness. You can do peer-to-peer. You can talk to your peers. If you feel like you know quite a bit about e-cigarettes, you'd be surprised that your peers might not. They might not have had the opportunity. They might have not thought that it was important at the time. So you may be able to help them. It might come better from a peer than an adult. There are also local youth groups, especially at your high school. There's a youth group called Represent, and that's with Partnership Carson City. So your best contact for that would be your teacher, Mrs. Bean, or Sam from Partnership Carson City. They're always more than happy to give you information. I can help you with information if you need it. But these are ways that you can be active and support certain efforts that are happening locally, or if there's something that you feel very passionate about, or if there's something that you want to do in that contest for the Scholastic News that kind of piques your interest, like, oh, hey, I want to know a little bit about more about that. You can do some research and always reach out to, like I said, myself, your teacher, or if you feel more comfortable with another counselor, or there's also Sam who can help you, who's with Partnership Carson City. And then there are cessation resources for youth. So this might not be for yourself, it might be for a friend that you've noticed has been either vaping a lot, or you notice that they want to actually quit. This is a great resource. It's called My Life, My Quit. It's free, it's confidential, and it's basically a way to quit either smoking or vaping. You can text them, start My Quit at 36072. You can call or text to the number 855-891-9989. I do recommend that you text from a cell phone number that has a Nevada area code, so you can get in contact with the state resources. But you can also just go online to mylifemyquit.com. This is specifically for teens. So it's for those teens or Nevada residents are between the ages of 11 and 17. So great resource, check it out. Even if you just kind of want to look at it to see what it is, even if you don't vape, you never know, a friend might need it. And then other resources, there is what we call the Nevada Tobacco Quit Line. That's sponsored by our state. This one you can call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. There's also a Spanish version of this. That's the 1-855 Déjalo Ya. And this one is for Nevada residents that are 13 years and older. So if you'd like, again, I would recommend that if you're going to call, that it be from a Nevada area code. They're open Monday through Friday, 24 hours a day. There are some holiday exclusions, but they have multiple languages. So if you know someone who doesn't speak English, or you have a family member who doesn't speak English, this would be a great resource. They do one-on-one coaching services. They offer what we call nicotine replacement therapy. That's actually an approved way for cessation. They have that available sometimes. And again, it's fast, confidential, and it's the way that you can help somebody else in your community or in your life if needed. I do have some additional resources where you can find out more information. CDC is always a great place to look up information, most recent things, especially in this time and age with the pandemic, with COVID-19. I'd recommend that you guys look up the Truth Initiative. They're always updating, sending out newsletters. There's catch.org. There's also a program with Not on Tobacco that the American Lung Association has. Know the Risk and Keep Connected are other resources that are available as well. I can also provide these to Mrs. Bean. These are QR codes, so you can literally just scan them with your phone and you would have access to them. So it's a pretty nifty way just to have that, reduces paper. And then I want to thank you guys for your time. Again, there's my phone number, my email. You can check out our website at gethealthycarsoncity.org. The tobacco program is having a new website that's coming out soon. We have the lounge, and then we're going to have Get Healthy Carson City /vape free. That'll be information specifically for youth, the lounge will be more information specifically targeted to youth where you can use it and possibly have a login. So that will be something that's coming up soon. And again, if you guys need any resources or anything like that, please reach out.
I have one question, Susie. You were talking about like tobacco cessation, like the patch and different types of gum. There is nothing for vaping, is there, per se? I think you were talking about that.
So NRT, so the nicotine replacement therapy, it's basically a nicotine replacement. And because vapes do have nicotine, it is, again, an approved method for cessation. Although you would need to go to a physician, especially if you're under the age of 18, to get that prescribed at the discretion of your physician. If you are over the age of 18, you can always go to your doctor for that. You can call the 1-800-QUIT-NOW hotline. And if that's available, they would be able to provide that to you. Like I said, currently at this time, because nicotine can be very harmful to an adolescent's brain, it's left to the discretion of the physician for that.
Good. Yeah, if you could send me these resources, I kind of copied a whole bunch down, but I would like to share that in my Zoom meeting my Google Classroom for the kids that weren't here tonight, and the parents that weren't here tonight. I'll put that in there for them.
And Erin, I'm not sure if you're seeing your students in person or not, but I can always print out a couple of flyers where you can post them up, especially because they're QR codes. So if they're in the classroom and they're curious about it, all you have to do is you can have an iPhone, an Android, whatever it is. Like if you're taking a picture, it'll pop the link right in front. You click on the link and it'll pop up on your phone, whatever you happen to look at, whether it's the My Life Might Quit. If you're looking for CDC resources or anything like that, that's available. I can also provide those some flyers for the Scholastic News contest. It'll give you the link where you can go to. I can provide that as well. Again, if you guys are interested in that, that is due March 22nd, and it's a chance to win $500.
Actually, I'm putting that into my Google Classroom tomorrow. So I was going to wait till you presented on this and then show them that. I know it's been out for a while, but I was like, I'll just wait. And we have some really good artists here in my classes that are always doodling and drawing, and it would be awesome for some of you to win $500. One other question I had was, so I've always read and heard in videos and stuff that I watch about one e-cig is equivocal of 1 pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, so depending on the amount, so the e-liquid that goes into the e-cigarettes can come in different strengths. You can get them like in 3 milligrams, 5 milligrams. So depending on the strength that you get, it could be equivalent to 1 pack or even to 4 packs of cigarettes. But because some of these devices you can turn on and off, they vary the amounts of puffs that you can get out of them. Some of them you can get like 250 puffs out of them, and some of them you can get like 1,000. So there's a huge variance. And like I said, they alter these. They're altered in cigarettes, but these are very altered and very potent. Like I was explaining earlier, they modify the pH level, so the concentration can get to your lungs and your brain a lot quicker, which causes addiction a lot faster. So I know some people say, oh, it's only one time, I just want to try it, want to know what the flavor is, not realizing the dosage, how strong these actually are. And unfortunately, that first time could be your hook, and you might not have the ability to stop. So again, this is why it's important for you to know there's a lot of people who don't know that e-cigarettes have nicotine in them. Like I said, some of them are advertised as nicotine free, and that's not true. They might have a very small percentage, but even a very small percentage can do a lot of harm. And a lot of it's difficult because kids want to have their experience. They don't want to be told by an adult that, hey, this is what happens. They want to know for themselves. And sometimes that's a scary outlook coming from an adult, knowing the potential harm that could come to them. And so, like I said, if it comes from peer to peer, it might come out a little bit better than an adult just telling you, no, you shouldn't do this. It usually comes better from someone who's the same age. And if your best friend's telling you that you shouldn't do it, you're probably going to be more inclined not to do it versus a parent or a teacher telling you don't do it, or even myself.
Yeah, we, like Susie said, that Samantha with Partnership Carson City comes here to the high school and meets with our club on a normal basis, like every week or every other week. But because of COVID and because of our hybrid model this year, we just haven't had our club up and running, but we will definitely do that again, and know that at Partnership Carson City, they're putting on a statewide youth coalition camp, and that's May 15th and 16th. If you're interested, I have those registration forms and all about the camp here. So come and get one from me.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody in the group?
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question.
So I have a question, Karen, and thank you. I'm sorry. So I have been taking care of like my parents' animals all night, so I apologize that I haven't been on video. But I have a question, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, Susie, but I know that legislature right now has been tackling the debate on whether to raise the age from 18 to 21 for tobacco products in the state of Nevada. And I know that like, federally it is 21, but I know that they want to pass a state law as well, just in case anything federally would be reversed to 18. Do you know anything about that, or do you have any insight on that?
So yeah, I do know a little bit about it. So currently, the federal law is 21. So it is illegal to sell to anyone under the age of 21. States have a three-year transition period to get up to date with the federal law. If we don't comply with the federal law, we risk losing our block grant, which is for behavioral health, substance abuse. It funds a lot of those programs, and it's 10%. So it's a big chunk of our state funds. The issue with that is that we have to meet compliance checks. And when they do compliance checks is when they do the stings, they go out to different retail stores and they see if these stores are selling to minors or not. I believe it was back in 2019 or 2018. Our compliance rate was really out of compliance. We were, I believe, over the 20% threshold that they allow for us not to lose our block funding. So with Tobacco 21 coming into play, we have to really focus on our enforcement pieces. So we make sure that we're within compliance with the federal Tobacco 21 law, and that the federal 21 law doesn't have any exemptions. So it doesn't have any military exemptions or age exemptions to say that you're grandfathered in if you're 18, just so you guys are aware. So our state law has to follow those same exact guidelines. As of right now, I believe the bill has been heard, and different organizations are working with the Attorney General's office to come to some common ground on how they can move forward with supporting the bill. As it's currently written, it has weak enforcement, unfortunately. So there are different agencies, like I said, that are working to fix those, and hopefully we'll have that passed this session. But we do have until 2023 to pass that law for it to go into effect before it affects any state funding.
Thank you. Yes, I have a lot of youth that that are like in question about, you know, is tobacco 21 something that like affects Nevada, or is it just like a national law, or, you know, exactly like where it stands. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so it does affect, because the FDA does do their own compliance checks besides the state. So if they do a compliance check, they could possibly run into some issues. If you guys are interested as students, there is a website called responsibletobacconv.com that the state runs and they have information on what retailers should know about the federal tobacco 21. There's actually a certificate that they can actually get, and it teaches them basically how to check IDs, how to say no, how to look for those things federally. And this is just like one of their flyers that they provide to us, since we're doing retailer education, and it has their website on there for them to be able to meet the federal law, because there are some fines associated to that. They have like this on their website, they have like a general overview video that you can go and look at if you're interested. And there's just a couple of different, informational assets on there that might be interesting to some of you guys, especially if you want to do that contest. But it will affect eventually Nevada, and it may potentially affect.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Especially for the youth on here as well. So we work in conjunction with the Carson City Sheriff's Office, and we do go out and do these compliance checks, not only for tobacco, but for alcohol as well. So any youth on here that is interested in maybe doing compliance checks for tobacco and alcohol, one, I know it's important, but we do pay you to go out and do these compliance checks, but it's well worth it, not only for data, but just to see, what retailers are selling these products to youth and all of that, and to not really reprimand, but also, find out which retailers are selling alcohol, tobacco products, marijuana, CBD, all of that. So that is something to keep in mind, that you guys can reach out to me to do these compliance checks for any sort of substances and everything like that.
Yeah. Another thing about this tobacco 21 law, and just in case you guys are interested, if any of you do work in a store that sells tobacco and you're not the age of 21, you won't lose your job. So they're working that into the bill. So you can still technically sell these products, even though you're underage. It won't be like alcohol where you're not allowed to touch it, because we don't want that to be, for employment to be affected. So those are some cool little things that they're putting in there. But you can always check out online what's happening with that bill. It's called AB 59 if you're interested, if you have to do any research or anything like that for your government classes or anything along those lines. There's lots of resources online for you to find out what's happening with our legislator.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on Amazon, there's all these melatonin pens. Are those just as bad as vape pens?
So essentially, the only thing that really should be going into your lungs is fresh air. Anything else that has a chemical can be harmful to your respiratory system. It can be harmful to your circulatory system. So they could potentially have some harm to them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other questions? These are good questions. Thank you, Rustam. Seeing or hearing none, I will close out the meeting, and thanks Susie Rubio for being here for the tobacco as well as the vaping dangers. And I think it was very informative. So thank you very much. And if you could send me over those resources, that would be great.
Of course. Yeah, I can definitely send them over. And again, if any of your students need any kind of information or doing some research, they can reach out to me. They can call, email me, whatever they're most comfortable with.
Okay. And I would like that if you have a flyer with those QR codes, I would love to have that too for my room.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And if you guys want to also have another resource, we do have an Instagram page for our club that Aaron was talking about. It's called Carson Represent. And so you guys can have a lot of different resources. And then you can also see different things on how we're doing our youth summit, and link in the bio of how to sign up and all of that too. So I'd just like to also point that out. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, and thank you to all the people that are on this tonight. I appreciate you guys coming and learning a little bit more about vaping and tobacco as well. And then again, I'd like to thank Partnership Carson City and Samantha for having us tonight and hosting these meetings on a weekly basis. Speaking of that, our next meeting is next Thursday, 6 p.m., same link, and that will be on marijuana. And guess who's doing it? Samantha with Partnership.
Me.
Yeah,
I will be your presenter.
she'll be on though. Her camera will be on next time.
Yes. Next week I'll be on. I'll be talking all about marijuana and the dangers of it. So thank you so much, Erin.
Cool. Thanks for coming tonight. And I guess I will see you later.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Samantha, that was much better, much more controlled with the chat room turned off. Like, I think it's just safer, you know?
Yes, I know. I was like, it's so much better. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
glad
then
those changes.
And a lot of kids had their videos on, so that was good. And then me also enabling the kids in or letting them in.
Yes.
I knew them, so.
Yes. Yeah. That was good. I'm excited for next week. So
I know,
good.
too. Yeah, me too. All right, well, have a good night and
Yeah.
I'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Sounds good. See you then.
Okay, bye.
Bye.